the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5, high buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5, high buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. We them on the stage. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubters sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones to believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. Yeah.
Here's Navarro on the run. Navarro's going to keep it. Navarro for 6! Touchdown, Bobcat!
I feel I had a hard time staying in my own lane.
Oh my goodness! Brett Murdoch! Pick 6!
Harvath inside the 30, the 20. Blake Harvath will score!
And Mendoza takes a big hit. He never saw it coming. Trey White got in there.
There's his man, Rucker. And nobody's going to catch him. Goodbye.
Intercepted!
Tyree Skipper! Touchdown!
Telly again, why not? A step forward and make it 2 for Telly!
Quarterback keeper showing off the speed, steps on the gas, untouched!
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live, where we bring you the G5 college football coverage you love each and every week. Guys, college football is back, baby. We had some great week 0 games, and this week we get our full slate of games in week 1. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, like, a retweet. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. I'm Luke. I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. Tonight, we'll bring you up to speed on the news from around the G5, a lot of depth charts, some surprises. We've got our G5 Hive Players of the Week. We've got recap of Week 0. We've got preview of Week 1. Are you ready? Are you ready, Justice? We're here. Let's get into it.
It's a lot of games. When I was putting together the graphics, man, there's There's a lot of games to go over in week one, just between there's so many G5 versus P4 games, and then a lot of good G5 versus G5 games. So it's going to be a long one tonight, but yeah, let's dive right into it.
All right. Well, I want to give out my offensive player of the week. Quarterback Maverick McIver, Western Kentucky. Maverick threw for 401 yards and 3 touchdowns while adding another one on the ground as the Hilltoppers take an early lead in the CUSA race.
All right. For my defensive player of the week, I went with Jaden Pearson, linebacker from Fresno State. He was a bright one of the few bright spots for Fresno State in their game against Kansas, which we'll get to a little bit later. But Jaden had 12 tackles, 10 solo tackles, and 1 tackle for loss for the Bulldogs. Congrats, Jaden. For my offensive player of the week, I went with kicker Kansei Matsuzawa from Hawaii. Kansei made 2 extra points. He was a perfect 3 for 3 on field goals, including the 38-yard game winner as time expired, giving Hawaii a big win over the P4. If you didn't get a chance to watch that game, like you got to hear some very interesting tidbits about the Hawaii football team, and one of those players was Kansei. Kansei coming from Japan, I think it was 5 years ago, never kicked a football. He watched, I believe it was YouTube videos of Seattle Seahawks kicker Jason Myers. Is that right? But he watched those YouTube videos and he learned how to kick. He decided he wanted to come back to the U.S., be a kicker. He went to a small college first, and he's been at Hawaii last year and this year. And he's an older guy. I think he's 25, 26, somewhere around there. But, yeah, just an incredible story. And to kick the game winner, just kind of an incredible ending in that game for Hawaii and for Kansei. So congrats.
Another tidbit about him is that he wanted to immerse himself in the English language. So he didn't want to go out west or anything. He came to the Midwest where, likelihood of speaking Japanese or anything was low. So that was interesting. All right. My defensive player of the week is linebacker Marcel McDuffie, UNLV. He had 6 tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and he had the big interception with the game tied at 31 that led to the go-ahead UNLV touchdown for the win. Congratulations, Marcel. Freshman player of the week, we have Marvis Parrish, Western Kentucky running back. Marvis had 52 yards rushing and added another 58 yards receiving and a touchdown on 6 receptions to help the Hilltoppers to get that big CUSA conference win in week 0.
Our freshman defensive player of the week is another Hawaii specialist, punter Billy Gowers. Billy's not your average freshman. He's 29 years old, from Australia. He's a much older, freshman. There was some question, I think, early on about if he'd be eligible, but he was kind of cleared. He just started playing American football, I believe, a year ago, August of last year. And he, went through the Pro Kick Australia program, and then, he trained as a punter and ultimately caught the eye of the Hawaii coaching staff, and they got him to come over. And like I said, he's a 29-year-old freshman. He is the 3rd oldest player in FBS football entering the 2025 season. So that's kind of strange, right? That there's 2 guys older than him in FBS football. I think one of them is the quarterback for South Alabama, the guy that played minor league baseball. He's a quarterback, played minor league baseball, and now he's with South Alabama. His name escapes me. Have no idea who the other guy is, but yeah, congrats, Billy, on player of the week.
All right. Well, Justice, should we buckle up and dive right into things? There's so many great G5 games to get to, but first, let's start with what the Swarm needs to know, our news and notes.
So, last week we talked about injury reports. They're really called availability reports, and so I thought it might be good just to kind of recap where that stands for all the G5 conferences. I also did some more digging into the two that we talked about last week with Conference USA and Sun Belt. So let's start there with Conference USA. Their starting availability reports in 2025. There are only two designations. Either list someone as out, which means they have a 0% likelihood of playing, or you list them as questionable, which means they have a 50% likelihood of playing. Injury reports will be distributed 3 hours prior to kickoff for Conference USA on the Conference USA website. Moving over to the Sun Belt, again, they are also starting this year, so starting in 2025. It is for conference games only. Obviously, schools can list the injury report whenever they want, but the only thing required for the Sun Belt is for conference games, and you can bet your bottom dollar that's the only thing that's going to happen. I don't think coaches are big on these availability reports for a lot of reasons. But anyway, the Sun Belt is kind of a two-step process. The initial report is due 3 days prior to the game beginning. The final report is due the day of the game by 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Players must be designated on the initial report. Players must be designated as available, probable, questionable, doubtful, or out on on the initial report. That's the one 3 days before. On the final report, the day of the game, players must be designated as available, game time decision, or out. All right, moving over to the Mountain West, starting also in 2025, again, only for conference games. They also have a two-step process. The initial report is due 2 days prior to the game. The final report is released 3 hours prior to the game, and in both cases, players are designated as questionable or out on both the initial and final reports. The MAC. The MAC was the lone G5 a year ago that started this. They started their availability reports in 2024, and those reports are available or released 3 hours before game time. The American, also starting this year, like most of the other conferences, it's only for conference games. It's the one with the shortest time frame. It is only released once, and it is only released 2 hours before kickoff, and players will be listed as probable or out. So that gets you up to speed on the G5. The P4 conferences are doing it as well. If you're interested in that, I'm sure you can go to their conference websites and find out the details. All these reports are listed on or will be listed on the respective conferences' websites. Some of them also said that they will tweet them out. I don't know that 100% of them will, but nonetheless, you can find them if there's something that you're interested in.
All right, let's get to some injury news. I think the one on everybody's mind is Micah Alejado, quarterback out of Hawaii. He played through a right ankle injury. Right now, it says that he's planning to play next week at Arizona. He's the crown jewel there at Hawaii. We saw how important his play was. I definitely got a lot of vibes of Jake Haener when Fresno State played against UCLA, and he was just banged up and going down the field. I got a lot of that feeling in that game. But I just think Michael Alejado is a gamer. I think he's going to play. But we'll see. Obviously, a win against Arizona or loss doesn't help or hurt them again in the Mountain West. So we'll stay tuned for that. Sam Houston. A lot of weird things happened in Sam Houston this week. Starting center and all-conference level player James Don II did not play in the game versus Western Kentucky. They had all sorts of other things, not injury-related, just kind of interesting of different starters not being named in the PA announcements, starters not warming up. Just seemed real interesting in a conference game week 0.
Very secretive.
Yes. App State running back Kanye Roberts, he's going to miss the 2025 season with a torn ACL. And Memphis safety Cortland Marsh is set to miss the season as well.
The Kanye Roberts injury is kind of a big one, I think, right? Because he was expected to I felt like he was competing for that starting job with Rashad Dubinion. And so I think that moves Khalifa Keith up in the depth chart, and but yeah, probably leads a little maybe to some more work for Dubinion, and maybe it was like a 1A 1B situation there with Kanye Roberts, and now it's more of maybe a defined 1-2. Don't know. That's just kind of like my guess or gut feel of how things were trending or how things were heading into the season. So that is a kind of a big loss there for App State. The Cortland Marsh is a big one too for Memphis. He's supposed to be one of their starters in that defensive backfield, and so having to replace a starter at this point's never a good situation.
Not at all. Justice, what kind of depth chart surprises or unexpected wins did we have here?
Yeah, so this week, I mean, we saw some depth charts last week, right? And like the St. Houston depth chart, as you mentioned, was like it was really pretty worthless, as was Western Kentucky. If you're not familiar, Western Kentucky listed every single player on the roster, but in alphabetical order on the depth chart. So like it was pointless. It served no purpose. And then I think in response to that, Sam Houston gave what looked like a traditional depth chart with like a 2 deep, but it was not at all accurate. Like for instance, Elijah Green, who started the game at running back, wasn't even listed on the 2 deep depth chart that was released. So lots of shenanigans. But this week, obviously, with week 1 coming, we get a lot more depth charts. And I don't know, like the one thing, like you have to kind of decipher or make a decision for yourself is what is this true, or again, is this shenanigans? And like, and we see it every year. Sometimes what they say is true, other times it's just shenanigans. But I did want to highlight a few things that kind of stood out to me. We've retweeted a lot of depth charts today, and we'll continue to do that throughout the week as we see them. But the first one was Miami of Ohio. And this is probably more of a mild surprise to me, as it had running back Kenny Tracy listed as the RB1 over Jordan Brunson. At the end of the day, I don't know that this is that big of a deal, as I expect both to play and see the field and get a lot of work. But I kind of expected Brunson would be the RB1, but that's not what it shows on the depth chart. And again, we'll see how it plays out here in a few days. Air Force quarterback has Josh Johnson or Liam Cesarka as their QB1. Liam's a new name that we haven't talked about previously. So again, interesting to kind of see who is going to lead that Air Force triple option offense. Moving over to Tulsa, running back Dominic Richardson is listed as the RB1 over Sevion Morrison, who's listed as the 3, but he's listed as an or with Braylon Presley as the number 2. Again, this one's like, I wouldn't say a total surprise, but Dominic Richardson was not there in the spring. I believe he was it was either New Mexico or New Mexico State. I don't remember which one. He left that team, joined Tulsa after spring. And so, you wouldn't necessarily expect he would pass 2 guys that were there in the spring, but evidently he did, and he's listed as the RB1. But, when we talked to Jeremy Poplin on our Worker Bee series, I think Jeremy pretty much said then that he expects, a lot of rotation there at running back, and I would expect the same. Also on the Tulsa depth chart, again, this wasn't like really a super shock given he missed the 2024 season with an injury, but I did notice that Jeremiah Ballard was not listed. He's a wide receiver, was not listed on the 2 deep. So hopefully that, he's still, it's a sign of him still recovering and that he hasn't had something else happen. Haven't seen or heard any of that. That's just like me trying to talk my way through, not seeing him on the depth chart. My guess is he's probably just still recovering from that 2024 injury. Moving over to Boise State, running back Breezy Dubar was not listed in the 3 deep. If you're not familiar, Breezy is someone I believe that just came back. He's been injured, just came back to practice, I think, in the last week. So again, not a shock that he was not listed on the 3 deep. That was, I believe, just released over the weekend. Like I said, he's just getting back to being a full participant in practice. So, but there's no shortage of talent there at running back for Boise State between Sire Gaines, Malik Sherrod, Dylan Riley, and Breezy Dubar. Like they have 4 really talented running backs there for the Broncos. Some quarterback news. We reported this a little earlier in the week or the end of last week that Connor Harrell at Charlotte, quarterback Connor Harrell, was named a team captain. And while at that point they had not named a starter, it's very unusual for a guy to be named a captain and not be a starter, right? Well, today we found out that Connor Harrell is the starter at quarterback for Charlotte. He was in a battle there with Grayson Loftus. Connor Harrell, high level recruit at North Carolina. A lot of folks were excited when he went to North Carolina. And here he is in the G5 just down the street at Charlotte. And I think he's someone that, can surprise some folks there for the 49ers. Speaking of quarterback news, I know Billy and I think others have asked numerous times about this guy, and that's former number 1 overall recruit and quarterback 5-star Malachi Nelson. He was named the starter at quarterback for UTEP, beating out Skylar Locklear. So we're finally going to get to see Malachi Nelson, right? Like in some game action. He played sparingly for USC and for Boise State, but like this kind of feels like, hey, we kind of get to see what's happened. He had the shoulder injury, so I'm really interested to kind of see how he looks. I think both Luke and I are excited for UTEP's potential this year as a dark horse or sleeper in Conference USA, and obviously it's a lot of that's gonna rest on how Malachi Nelson plays. So I'm kind of excited to see what he looks like there for the Miners. Moving over to Kent State, we talked about this in our Worker Bee series that released just last week, the final one of the 2025 season, and that is CJ Montez. He is officially named the starter at quarterback for Kent State. If you're not familiar with CJ, he was a Walter Payton Award finalist for Fordham in 2023 with 26 touchdowns and 1 interception. The Walter Payton Award is essentially the Heisman, if you will, for FCS players. Staying with some quarterback news, just came out today that James Madison quarterback Alonzo Barnett has been cleared for contact, and no starter has been named, for week 1. I'm going to say some things right now, and everyone should know that these are my own personal opinions. These are not anything based on like facts or information that I have or know. I do not expect to see Alonzo Barnett out there, I would say, in the whole non-conference schedule. He suffered a pretty big knee injury the very last game at the very last play of the regular season. And so asking him to play in week 1, I think is a really, really tall order, especially since he literally just got cleared for contact. And so I personally think, like, my own opinion is this was a ploy, like the kind of shenanigans, if you will, to throw off their week 1 opponent, and to maybe have to plan, well, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Alonzo? Is it going to be Matt Sluka? And so my personal opinion is I'd be shocked if Alonzo Barnett plays in the non-conference schedule. There was some talk about, hey, well, would he even be able to get a medical red shirt? Because, a doctor has to sign off on that. And of course, I don't know, I don't think that's as big a deal as people would lead you to believe. The guy, like I said, he suffered a torn ACL. It is 100% not uncommon for that to be a year-long process. So I don't believe it's, you're going to necessarily find a doctor that wouldn't agree with that and sign off on it. He does not have a normal red shirt to use. He's already used that. So he would have to gain another year. He'd have to be able to use a medical red shirt. So anyway, I don't expect to see Barnett out there week 1. But we'll see what happens. Not a shocker. We talked about it in our Worker Bee series, but Walker Howard has been officially named the starting quarterback for Louisiana. Walker Howard, I believe, was a 4-star recruit at LSU. He was at Auburn, and now he is the starter for the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. He's a hometown kid, and I expect him to do some good things there for Louisiana, and maybe he can help them, win the Sun Belt West. Now, this next one is a bit of a shock because we did not talk about this guy at all in our Worker Bee series with the beat reporter. But it's kind of looking like Trey Kukic is going to be the starter at quarterback for Louisiana Tech. He is from Saddleback College. Looks like he's going to win that job over Evan Bullock, who was the guy that we expected to be the starter. And it seems like within the last week or so, Kukic has been the one taking all the first team reps. And so I don't think they've officially announced it yet, but I think the expectation is that Trey Kukic is going to be the starter for Louisiana Tech, and that is a bit of a shock. Tulane, they had talked last week that quarterback battle is down to 2 players, and I found that very interesting because one of the players isn't even practicing because he's hurt. So I'm not really sure how it's really a battle if he's not even practicing. But anyway, they have it down to Jake Retzlaff and the transfer from BYU, and Brendan Sullivan, the transfer from Iowa. As I mentioned, Sullivan has not been practicing due to a bone bruise. My personal opinion is it's going to be Jake Retzlaff. I just don't see like him losing out to Brendan Sullivan. I would be absolutely shocked and stunned if that happened. But having said that, I think the whole college football world was a little shocked and stunned when Darian Mensah rolled out there week 1 for Tulane in 2024. I think everyone thought it'd be Kai Horton or Ty Thompson, and it wasn't either one of them. And Darian Mensah went on to have a phenomenal season there for the Green Wave. So, it shouldn't say it should shock me if Brendan Sullivan's quarterback, but certainly my expectation is that it's going to be Jake Retzlaff. And that's kind of it for like player injury, depth chart, quarterback news, etc. One thing I did want to point out, and I'd encourage you to go look at our X account where we retweeted it, but New Mexico unveiled some new turquoise uniforms and paying homage and heritage to the Native Americans, and it's pretty sweet uniform. So if you haven't seen it, we retweeted the unveiling video on our X handle at some point last week. If you want to check it out, I'm sure you can also Google it. New Mexico new uniforms, but yeah, I thought they were pretty sweet uniforms. You don't see turquoise used a lot, and so that was pretty cool of New Mexico, and some sweet threads for those guys to roll out this season.
All right, well, let's look back at week 0 in review and some of these G5 games. We had Idaho State at UNLV. We didn't have a line at the time. UNLV wins 38-31. Justice, any takeaways that you had from the game?
Yeah, man. Like I actually watched every single game this week. And so the UNLV game was on the Mountain West channel. If you don't, like, it wasn't on regular TV, it was on their app. I would encourage, supposedly every Mountain West game will be available on that app. So it's a free way to watch Mountain West football if you're interested. Mountain West app, but nonetheless, Idaho State at UNLV. UNLV did not look good. Idaho State should have won the game. Idaho State made a couple of mistakes, like in the red zone. One, he threw a pick in the end zone, and I don't know, like you can chalk it up to like, hey, it's week 0, whatever. But like Idaho State's not really a powerhouse in the FCS, and they went to UNLV and by my opinion, should have absolutely won the game. UNLV rotated the quarterbacks between Anthony Calandria and Alex Orji. To my point about Idaho State, making a big miscue there in the end zone, UNLV did the same thing. Alex Orji running into the end zone, gets hit, fumbles the ball. Idaho State recovers. So it was not like a pretty game, especially if you're a UNLV fan. I'd be pretty nervous. Probably, like, in my opinion, like really the two bright spots were running back Jaden Thomas, who had a phenomenal game. I think 10 rushes for like 147 yards, 4 touchdowns,
147 yards. Jaden Bradley, 131 yards receiving.
The other player I was going to mention was, the player of the week, Marcel McDuffie. That interception was absolutely critical because it was a tie ball game. The defense hadn't really been stopping Idaho State, and he comes up with an interception that on the 20-yard line. I think he returned it like 10 yards or something, gives it back to UNLV first and goal, and that's how they end up scoring the game-winning touchdown. But again, like to me, like based on like they rotated running backs a lot, and they rotated the quarterbacks. And if you're if someone was, I'm not a coach, I'm not like any of those things, but from my perspective, if UNLV wants to win football games this year, it's going to be Anthony Calandria, and you need to get the ball to Jaden Thomas and stop rotating him with 3 other running backs. Those other running backs aren't in the same league as Jaden Thomas. So like the man needs more than 10 touches in a game. Hopefully that will be a takeaway for Dan Mullen from this game. I mean, his coaching history tells us otherwise when it comes to running backs in terms of rotating them. But like to me, I mean, the defense was not good. The UNL defense was not good at all. And I don't know that that's going to change moving forward. But I think the offense, if you can keep Calandria and keep Jaden Thomas on the field, that should help with the offensive side of things.
Let's move over to some G5 versus P4 matchups. We had Fresno State against Kansas. Kansas was favored by 12. Kansas wins 31-7. I did not watch all of this game. I watched some of it and had to switch pretty early on because I was really curious about the Sam Houston Western Kentucky game that we'll talk about later. You said you got to watch all of them. What were your takeaways for the Fresno State game?
I think the big takeaway was the offensive line for Fresno State did not look good. But they're playing a P4 team. They're not going to be playing a P4 team every week. And they just Fresno State got dominated in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Kansas imposed their will, whether it was a defensive line or offensive line, they imposed their will on this Fresno State team. I think some people could be panicking about Bryson Donaldson. I'm personally not one of those people. I think he showed he is the best running back on that team. But I also feel like Fresno State felt like, hey, this game is over. We don't need to keep rolling him out there and getting him injured. I mean, if you saw him on that pass catch, which I think he took for 30 or 40 yards, something like that.
30,
Bryson Donaldson.
39 yards or something.
He showed you what he can do. And so I'm personally not worried about Bryson Donaldson. I do think he's in for a big season. And like I said, Fresno State's not gonna play offensive lines and defensive lines that are as strong as what Kansas has. I do think Matt.
I am worried about Fresno.
Worried about what, offensive line or
just the whole team as a whole?
I think
points.
Matt Entz. I think Matt Entz will get them. Yeah, scoring points could be a problem. I mean, Matt Entz's team is not really built to score points quickly, right? What they want to do is run the ball and play good defense. And obviously that did not happen against Kansas. But I think he's a good coach. I think they'll get things turned around, and I think they'll be okay once they get into conference play.
All right, let's move over to Stanford at Hawaii. Hawaii was favored by 2.5. They won by 3, 23-20. I think we had picked in last week's that they would win this game. This was just a good. It couldn't have started off any worse for Hawaii. Giving up the touchdown, then the blunder of the ball hits the ground. You call for a fair catch and you field it at the 1, and it's not a touchback or move it out because the ball had hit the ground. So that's a learning lesson for the Rainbow Warriors and all other returners, and then proceed to get a sack, fumble, recovered for a touchdown right away. So that was a rough start rough start for Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean that special teams miscue is really kind of like what kept Stanford in the game. I mean, Stanford has got off.
Maybe I'm trying to think. Actually, maybe they were. Did they score a field goal
and
then that happened?
It was 3-0. I believe it was 3-0 Stanford. Then you had that miscue on the punt, like you said, where the guy called a fair catch after it hit the ground, which you can't do. And then, so he was down at the 1, and then Alejado gets strip sacked in the end zone, and he fumbles, and they get another touchdown.
Like I said, that game was exciting to watch. Obviously, Hawaii couldn't stop the run, really. There, especially towards the end, Stanford really could run the ball. And like I said, Alejado, just a gamer, definitely gives me much of those vibes that why am I blanking on his name now? The Fresno State quarterback who's not Jay Kaner. Definitely gives me his gamer vibes out there. So
yeah,
excited to watch him this year. Hopefully, he's able to rest up, get everything ready to go for this next week, and hopefully he's able to stay healthy all season.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Hawaii looked so good against Ashton Genty last year. I was a little surprised given the absolute ineptitude of the Stanford passing offense that Hawaii just didn't sell out against the run and be able to stop Michael Ford. But that's what happened. Stanford, I feel like Stanford is like the worst team in the Power Four. And might be one of the worst teams in all of college football. Man, like Ben Gulberson is not good. He is not good. Like I was like, I don't know if the dude would hit water if he fell out of a boat. He did not look good. Which really surprised me because like he beat Elijah Brown, and I'm thinking, well, if Elijah Brown can't beat Ben Gulberson out for that starting job, based on what I saw in this game, that is not good for Elijah Brown. But yeah, I think Stanford's in for a really, really rough season. Like you said, Micah Ford was really the only bright spot, and I have no doubt the other teams that watch that tape, and Micah Ford is going to see a lot of stacked boxes moving forward, and folks are going to force Stanford to have to pass the ball to beat them. On the Hawaii side, I think someone that I know I really liked for Hawaii was Jackson Harris, and like he showed out in week 1. I think he had 10 or 11 targets. He was targeted heavily in the end zone. He had 1 touchdown. Him and Pafele Ashlock were kind of the stars, if you will, on the receiving end for Hawaii, and I expect that to continue out throughout the season. And yeah.
Something I was surprised about was they definitely had a lot of receptions or whatnot, but Pafele Ashlock led the team with 69 yards receiving. He might have actually led the whole game from either team. So a lot of low ADOT targets. But yeah, I think that was probably what I was most going against, even though it is Stanford going against a P4 team, like you could kind of see maybe the cornerbacks being a little bit better, but that was kind of interesting to see, just like the lack of explosive plays that they were able to put together. But yeah, nonetheless, get the W.
And I think we said last week, like, don't bet the over. Right. Because we said Stanford's going to struggle to help that over, but we did say, take Hawaii in the 2.5. So we nailed one. Yay.
All right. Week 0 Conference USA matchup. Honestly, if WKU could win this game, they might have an inside track to a playoff spot based off their schedule and whatnot. Sam Houston at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky favored by 10. Close game in the first half, especially when Sam Houston got the fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's about when I put my kids to bed and I come down and it's a blowout. I'm like, Justice, what did happen? What did happen here? Western Kentucky wins 41-24.
Yeah. I mean, the game, it didn't necessarily, it kind of went generally as I expected. I expected, the Sam Houston want to run the ball, control the clock, keep the Western Kentucky offense and their own defense, which isn't great, off the field. And that worked for, like I said, the 2/3 of the game or so. And then, once Western Kentucky started pulling away, like Sam Houston's just not built, offensively or defensively to catch up. They just
had
aren't.
to throw the ball a little bit more. They had to throw the ball a little bit more, and when they got behind, then it just they kept getting behind.
Yeah. I mean, again, I actually think I have to go back and listen to last week, but I think like the predictions we made on all three games in terms of if we were going to bet, I think all three were right. I believe Fresno State at Kansas, we said take the under. And then we just talked about the Stanford Hawaii, and then the Sam Houston Western Kentucky game, we said take Western Kentucky. And the game, I mean, Western Kentucky probably started a little slow for what I was expecting, but they eventually pulled away. Maverick McIver looked, really, really good. The Sam Houston could not. He had all day to throw the ball. Sam Houston could generate no pass rush on Maverick McIver. Matthew Henry looked like his like wide receiver one out there. Both of those guys moving up in competition, coming over from the FCS. Musa Berry had a decent game. I believe he had a drop touchdown. Katie Hutchison had a drop touchdown. Probably the really surprise was Parrish, the freshman running back, who was our freshman offensive player of the week. And probably what was so surprising was how heavily he was involved in the passing game. I think he had like 6 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown or something like that. So that from a true freshman, like that was a pretty good game. And, I think Western Kentucky, for the most part, showed what I expected. A high-powered offense. Sam Houston, as we expected, the Sam Houston defense did not look good. I don't think they're going to be good all year. Probably the thing I'm looking for the most. I mean, we saw how effective Hunter Watson was on the ground, right? We that's kind of what about Hunter Watson. It's what we saw a year ago. I'm kind of interested to see. I was mildly surprised that they never made a switch when they got so far behind. I'm just I'm just wondering if we will see a switch at quarterback if they continue to just play games where they're always behind. If they don't switch the younger guy, perhaps the better passer, and maybe Matauer. But Hunter Watson showed what he can do on the ground, and that was super effective until they got so far behind Western Kentucky.
All right. Should we get into week 1 previews?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's tackle Thursday, Friday, G5 versus P4 games. Thursday, we got Ohio at Rutgers, 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Rutgers by 15, over/under set at 49.5. What are you excited about here?
I'm excited for potentially another a P4 win over a G5. I mean, I'm sorry, a G5 win over a P4. I got that backwards. I mean, given that it's week 1, everyone's healthy, right? It's not like this is week 3 and Ohio's already played 2 of the P4 teams. This is week 1. The game is at Rutgers, but Parker Navarro. I want to see Parker Navarro do Parker Navarro things, like we saw in the MAC championship game last year, like we saw in the bowl game win over I think it was Western Kentucky. But yeah, that's what I want to see is. I'm sorry, it's Sam Houston. Ohio do Parker Navarro do Parker Navarro things. Cy Bangura back for Ohio. I'm excited to kind of see how he looks. Chase Hendricks. I'm like, is he this year's version of Coleman Owen for the Bobcats, the number 1 receiver from a year ago? Rutgers. I mean, they have some talent, right? They have some talent at running back with Antoine Raymond and C.J. Campbell. I'm not a big fan of quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis, the Greek rifle, as they call him. But they have some talent at receiver, right, with Ian Strong and DT Sheffield. So it should be a fun, entertaining game. I mean, if I'm picking, I think what you said, Rutgers is favored by 15. If that's the case, give me Ohio in the points. I mean, I think Ohio could potentially win this game outright. So that seems like a really big spread.
East Carolina at North Carolina State, big rivalry game. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Rematch of the bowl game. We've got North Carolina State favored by 13. Over under set at 61.5.
Yeah, it should be a good one, right? I mean, we saw that
absolutely.
We saw a preview of this game in the bowl game. ECU wins that with a fitting Rajah Harris touchdown run to kind of clinch it for the Pirates there. Maybe NC State's going to want some payback. This should be a fun one. As Kenneth said, it's going to be chippy. It was, if you don't remember, it was pretty chippy in the bowl game, and I think that's 100% going to continue as you see in any kind of rivalry game. Two teams that are like, I don't know, an hour, maybe 45 minutes apart from each other driving wise. So really, really close. And it should be a fun one. The ECU offense is a fun offense. It's an offense that we're super excited for. You see CJ on the NC State side. You get CJ Bailey, Hollywood Smothers at running back, Justin Jolie at tight end. Those are probably the big names for NC State on offense. But man, like this ECU wide receiver core they're the real deal, man. Right? Yannick Smith, Anthony Smith, Anthony the consummate deep threat. And if you don't know, Anthony Smith came from NC State, so a little extra juice for him in this game. Yannick Smith, just a freshman last year that burst onto the scene at the end of the 2024 season. A physical specimen, right? Like someone that probably we might see playing here on Sundays, in a couple years. Probably the biggest question mark for me on the offensive side for ECU is like what they're going to do at running back. Like, their workhorse from a year ago, Rajah Harris, is gone. But they have talented guys: London Montgomery, Marlon Gunn Jr., Parker Jenkins.
I don't think there was an or there. I think it was
there was no or. I don't think, but I expect you're going to see all of those guys used. I expect you'll see a rotation.
Absolutely. I think what I'm looking forward to is like NC State is usually tough at home. It's hard to like go into NC State and win. Their defense has been historically great. I spend a lot of my time here in the G5. That's what we do. So I don't really know what more like NC State is. So like the 61.5, your average score for a G5 or your average score for a college football game is 65. So this is a little bit lower than the average. If I would assume that NC State defense is what they have been in the past, I think I would go under for a total. NC State favored by 13. I don't think I'm probably playing that line.
I mean, if I had to pick one, that's probably what I would pick as the line and take ECU in the points, I guess, just because I don't know, like in a rivalry game, 13 points seems like a lot of points. But having said that, the biggest question mark for me for ECU is their defense, right? They got Jamari Ridley back there in that defensive backfield. That's a huge help. I think their defensive line is going to be okay. The probably what worries me the most is the linebackers and the cornerbacks for East Carolina. And so, like to me, like I feel like this is an avoid game from a betting perspective. But if you told me I had to pick something, I probably would take ECU in the points.
All right. We've got Jacksonville State at UCF, 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Line UCF favored by 19, 52.5 point over under.
This should be a fun game, right? It's a totally. I don't know the actual numbers, but I would venture to guess like 80% new team for Jacksonville State. They lost. They had so much turnover from a year ago that they lost to graduation or the portal. Brand new coaching staff for Jacksonville State. But I am excited to see quarterback Gavin Wimsatt and transfer running back Cam Cook. I think Cam Cook, is someone that could have a big season for the Gamecocks, as well as Wimsatt at quarterback. Wimsatt's a dual threat guy if you're not familiar. UCF, you get the return of Scott Frost. They named Cam in a bit of a shock, I guess. Like they named Cam Fancher as their quarterback. I don't know. I guess like I'm not super excited by that. Like, he didn't look great at Florida Atlantic a year ago. Scott Frost's return at UCF. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know really what to expect from UCF this year. I don't think they're going to be very good. They do have Jaden Nixon and Miles Montgomery at running back. Outside of that, like I'm not too excited for UCF, but definitely excited to see Wimsatt and Cam Cook and what this new coaching staff looks like. Especially the offensive coordinator Clint Trickett. He was there at Marshall back. I'm trying to think of the two running backs. Is it Bradshaw? The running back that had the two big seasons and he missed a year with injury. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. And then is it Laybourne? Who's that?
For what team?
Marshall. Laybourne came, and the year that he was injured, Laybourne had
Ali?
Yes, Rasheem Ali. Yes. So he was there the first go around with Ali and then Kalen Laybourne, and they both had phenomenal seasons there at running back for Marshall. So I'm excited to see, like, is Cam Cook gonna, be that guy for Jacksonville State, get 1,300, 1,400 yards and a lot of touchdowns. That's probably what the thing I'm looking forward to the most there in that game.
All right, Buffalo at Minnesota, 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. We've got that one is Minnesota favored by 17.5, over under at 44.5. I like Buffalo in this one. Like, I'll probably take Buffalo points. But if they were to beat Minnesota, I would not be totally shocked.
Yeah, I think what worries me the most is quarterback play for Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Al-Jay Henderson, Victor Snow at receiver, Al-Jay Henderson at running back. Like those guys are proven commodities. Taquan Robertson comes from the Big Ten, right? He was at Penn State at one time, and then I believe most recently at Kansas State. So he's got experience. He was a high level recruit. He's never really shown much up to this point in terms of skill on the field, at least on the college field anyway. That quarterback situation really kind of concerns me there for Buffalo. Over on the Minnesota side, like it starts and ends with Darius Taylor, their superstar running back. But they're also breaking in a new quarterback in Drake Lindsey. And folks that are much more in the know than in Minnesota than I and Luke are really high on Drake Lindsey. I was on a Big Ten show last week. We live for Saturdays, and the host is a big Minnesota guy, and I believe his words were like he's never seen like someone as talented as Drake Lindsey at quarterback for Minnesota. So I'm excited to see that. Right, I don't really know much about Drake Lindsey, but he seemed super jacked about Lindsey, and he was jacked about the running backs, especially Darius Taylor and AJ Turner. If you watched this last year,
Okay.
you should be familiar with AJ Turner. He said, as we already knew as G5 fans, AJ Turner is fast and electric with the ball in his hand. He showed it time and time again at Marshall a year ago, and the Minnesota fans seem to be really, really excited for their running back duo in Taylor and AJ Turner. So I don't know. Like, again, for me, like, if it's probably an avoid. I don't necessarily. I would not be comfortable making any bets on this game just because I'm just not comfortable with the quarterback situation at Buffalo. The Buffalo defense, though, like, I'm pretty excited for those guys, especially the linebackers, Red Murdoch, an All-American candidate this year. Hopefully he gets makes the finalist for the linebacker of the year, the Butkus Award. His partner in crime, Sean Dolak, was 100% robbed last year. If you don't know, Sean Dolak and Red Murdoch were the top two tackle guys in all of college football, and they played on the same team. And so Red Murdoch's returns. Sean Dolak is off at the Los Angeles Rams. He was an undrafted free agent. Again, criminal. He should have been drafted. But in my opinion, he's shown he can play at the NFL level, and you're going to see his name called, I think, quite a bit this season for the Rams. But having said that, Deion Crawford's probably the new name that the casual fan does not know about. Deion Crawford, last year, he got on the field. So Buffalo usually only plays two linebackers. But Deion Crawford was so talented, they ended up putting him at edge a lot of times last year. He would also spell Murdoch or Dolak at linebacker, but just to get Crawford's talent on the field, they would put him at edge. And he's only like 230 pounds, so he's not like really built like an edge. But he had 8.5 sacks, I think 40 tackles a year ago. He's going to be the starting linebacker next to Red Murdoch here in 2025. And so I think, you can expect, another Bash Brothers dynamic duo, whatever you want to call them there at linebacker for Buffalo between Deion Crawford and Red Murdoch.
All right, and then let's get to the final G5 versus P4 game. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, Miami at Wisconsin. Wisconsin favored by 17.5. Over under set at a whopping 39.5 points. Obviously tough to go into Wisconsin, but at this point, really don't know what Wisconsin is. You got a new OC there. I think Miami will be one of the top teams in the MAC, or at least vying for it. Obviously, Miami breaking in a new quarterback, kind of new to the team, but DeQuan Finn coming back to the MAC obviously brings a different dynamic that they haven't had in a while. 17.5, I feel like, is kind of a lot. Miami's one of those. They're just a solid team.
Well-coached team. Chuck Martin always has those guys ready. The Wisconsin quarterback situation is ugly, in my opinion. You have Billy Edwards and Danny O'Neal. Neither of those guys instill a ton of confidence in me. I expect that they're going back to the Wisconsin offense of old in terms of run the ball some more. I think it was announced today that Dylan Jones, or at least Dylan Jones, was listed atop the depth chart. I believe there was no Orr there. He was kind of in a battle with, I believe, Cade Yakimelli and Darian Dupree. And so, excited to see how that running back room shakes out for Wisconsin. And to your point, like DeQuan Finn, right? He's back in the MAC. The Lamar Jackson of the MAC, as he was called on our Worker Bee series. Excited to kind of see what he can do. Offensively, I'm interested, who's, Miami always seems to kind of have one receiver that pops every year. Kind of interested to see who that will be. Maybe Deion Colsey, a transfer from Notre Dame. One thing that I did not mention in our news and notes section, but Cordell Russell, who was a high-level recruit, I think started out at maybe TCU, went to SMU, or flipped in the recruiting cycle, went to SMU. Most recently at Colorado, went to Miami in the offseason in the transfer portal, and I understand he is no longer listed on the roster. So don't know the situation, don't know what happened, but no more Cordell Russell there for Miami. But definitely interested to kind of see, is there a receiver that pops for Miami? And then I think Miami has, Miami, what does scare me is like they lost a lot on defense, right? They lost edge Brian Ugwu, linebacker Matt Salopek. I do like their linebacker room this year with Corbin Hondrew and Oscar McWood. I think those two guys are going to surprise a lot of folks. It should be a good old school game, right? Like play defense and run the ball. It's kind of what I expect. And it's the last Thursday night game. I guess we got a couple of Friday G5 P4 games.
Yep. So Friday we've got Western Michigan at Michigan State, 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday. So that is one of my monitors went down, so I got to do this real quick. So that's set at Michigan State, favored by 20.5, over under set at 49.5. I think the news here to note is Western Michigan Cole Cabana, running back, was probably going to get quite a bit of run. 1A, 1B type thing with Jalen Buckley. Cabana's got an injury. He'll miss a couple games. So I think that's the thing to note. I think we're both concerned about Western Kentucky as to what they're going to do with their quarterback play. What's this mean for the rest of the team? This could be an ugly one in favor of Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, like Brock Lowry, I think is expected to be the quarterback, but like it's a battle, and I think quarterback play is probably the biggest question mark for that Western Michigan team. Who is going to be the starter, and what do they look like? Quarterback play wasn't good for them a year ago. Jalen Buckley, we know what he is. Is there a receiver that emerges? I believe they have Malik Duadon. They got Talik Williams, and then there's another guy that I'm missing off the top of my head. That's the P4 transfer.
Yeah, he was at Georgia Tech, I think. Alabama.
Christian Leary.
Christian Leary.
He's at Alabama and then Georgia Tech, and now he's at Western Michigan. So I think they have talented. Like the question is, like, do they have a quarterback that can, get them the ball? Michigan State, a second year under Jonathan Smith. I'm interested to see like if Aiden Childs lives up to his hype, right? A lot of people expected a lot of things out of Aiden Childs. I don't think to this point like he's lived up to those expectations. So kind of excited to see if he's taken a step forward here in 2025 for the Spartans. Nick Marsh at receiver. They brought in Amari Kelly and Krishan Big Play McCray at wide receiver. They have Elijah Taliver, a transfer, FCS transfer, I believe, at running back, and then a freshman running back. I'm excited to see if he gets any run in Jace Clorzio. But yeah, again, this I mean, if I have to pick, I'm taking Michigan State in the points. That Western Michigan quarterback situation really, really scares me.
Absolutely. And then let's talk about our last P4 versus G5 game on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Kennesaw State at Wake Forest. Wake is favored by 18. Over under set at 51.5. We get a look at the new look. Was it Run and Hoot? Run and Hoot offense. You got Dexter Williams the second. Veer and Hoot, I think. Yeah. You got Dexter. You got Dexter Williams the second. Let's see here. He was Tulsa. Then he went to
Georgia Southern,
and then now at Kennesaw State. Wake Forest. Did they
announced Robbie Ashford as the quarterback, which that's like I would feel a whole lot better like if I was betting this game on the Wake Forest side if Deshaun Purdy was the quarterback. I don't know, like Robbie Ashford's a good runner, but he is not a good passer of the football. And so like that, like I don't know, man. Like that just seems like a situation where it's going to be a quarterback rotation.
Like 51 and a half seems pretty high.
That seems like a lot. Yeah, I mean,
for this
I think
game.
Yeah, I would bet the under. I think just because, like, I don't know, like, I'm not high on either one of these teams. Both of them new coaching staffs. Like, if I was going to highlight one player, it's running back Damon Claiborne for Wake Forest.
Yep.
You know, I think Coach Dickert, like, I think he said many times in this offseason, like, our offense is going to be how many carries can Damon Claiborne handle. I don't think they're going to need him to do too much work in this game against Kennesaw State. But I do think Kennesaw State will be improved over what they were a year ago with Dexter Williams at quarterback with this offense. Gabriel and Garland Binyard. Gabriel is the receiver. Garland is the linebacker. They're two of the captains and stars on the team. And Christian Moss at receiver. Those are probably guys to look out for on the Kennesaw State side. Like I said, I expect to see a lot of Damon Claiborne at least early, and then and Wake Forest kind of pull away. But I mean, if I'm Wake Forest, like if Robbie Ashford's my starter, I think I use this game to play both guys. Just because, like, I would not be, you know, I don't have the Wake Forest schedule in front of me, but at some point they're going to play, you know, a Clemson or a NC State or a Florida State or, you know, whoever, name another ACC team. And I don't know that Robbie Ashford is going to be the guy that I want to be putting my hopes of a win on. And so I don't know. I would expect to see both those quarterbacks, Deshaun Purdy and Robbie Ashford, in this game, week 1.
All right, let's move on over to our Thursday, Friday G5 versus G5 games. And it starts off with an absolute banger of a game. I think the only thing I'm upset about is that it's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Like, I kind of wish it was a little bit later. But number 25, Boise State at South Florida. I think there's going to be a little bit of rain. But this is going to be a great one. Boise State favored by 6.5 on the road, so that's kind of interesting. 63.5 over under set on the game. I think it'll be under. It's just kind of interesting because you got Boise State, who's going to try to play, I think, solid defense and run the ball, and let Madsen just kind of like ease into the game, throw, dink, and dunk, do his little thing, almost like, you know, the 49ers on the pro side, kind of like that. And then you got South Florida, who just wants to tempo, run the ball or throw the ball, make electric plays. So, you know, if they get down, they can probably make that up. But then if you're, you know, it's going to be hot in South Florida, and, you know, if you're going, I'm expecting a lot of cramping. But then if it's raining, you know, I don't know how the field surface is going to be, but, you know, slips or whatnot. But I'm expecting, I mean, if it's anything like the Ireland game, watching at Farmageddon, getting a pass rush was kind of hard. But yeah, I think this game is going to be an absolute banger. And call me crazy, kind of like South Florida. I get their 6.5 point underdogs, but I kind of like South Florida in this game.
I mean, from a betting perspective, I'm probably avoiding this one just because I feel like I think I can see a wide range of outcomes, right? And it really kind of all hinges on Byron Brown and what he looks like for the Bulls here in week 1. You know, coming off a season where he missed the majority of the season due to injury, but to be honest, like, even, you know, before he got injured, he did not look great a year ago. And so, which version of Byron Brown do we get? The electric version we saw in 2023, or the not so great version we saw to start 2024 before he got injured? So, yeah, that ball, his well-being, his play, I think, is going to dictate a lot in how this game goes. And I'm not comfortable, like, I don't feel comfortable making a prediction on how Byram's going to play. I mean, I think Boise State's Boise State. You know what to expect, right? They're going to be, you know, a very sound team offensively and defensively. am excited, I guess, to see kind of what does their identity look like after Ashton Genty. We've talked about it so many times a year ago where there were games where they probably should have lost, but because of the greatness of Ashton Genty, he willed them to wins. And so they don't have that this year. And so, I think our expectation is they are going to probably falter a couple times. And it's not to say they're not a talented team and they don't have talented running backs, because they do. But there is, in my opinion, there is no Ashton Genty that's going to save the day for him this year. And I think, to your point, Luke, I think MACtion is going to have to step up in that passing game and do a little bit more than what we saw a year ago. And the question is, can he do it? Chris Marshall. Chris Marshall has been getting rave reviews in camp. Chris Marshall was a 5-star recruit, I believe. Went to Texas A&M. Got kicked off the team. I think he went to Ole Miss. Got kicked off the team, and then I think went to JUCO before finally landing at Boise State. We heard good things about him last year. Never really saw it materialize on the field. We've heard good things this offseason about Chris Marshall, and so I'm excited to see. Are we finally going to see this 5-star talent materialize for Boise State? Latrell Capel's another guy, and then Matt Lauder, their tight end, a favorite target of Maddox Masson, especially in the red zone. And then defensively, Jaden Virgin Morgan. That's a name to know for Boise State on the edge. I think he's a guy that's going to be an all Mountain West level player for Boise, and he's going to be the one kind of racking up the TFLs and the sacks for the Broncos in 2025.
All right, we got Wyoming at Akron, 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Over under set at 49.5. Wyoming favored by 7. I assume Wyoming will run the ball. Some explosive plays here and there by maybe I'm trying to think of the true freshman that was there last year.
Chris Durr.
Chris Durr. I think, maybe some LeBlanc, the freshman that's there now, maybe, but I expect a heavy dose of running the football, and Wyoming gets in, gets out. It's kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers. We just want to run the ball, get the win, and get out of there. But I'm going to go with Wyoming in this one.
Would you say is Wyoming is it 6.5 or 7?
7, which is weird.
7,
right at 7.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I think the spread is that way just because of the style of play of Wyoming, right? It's run the ball and play good defense. So can they win by more than 7? I guess if I was going to bet, I'd take Wyoming in the points. I don't think Akron is a very good team. I think Wyoming will be much improved versus what they were a year ago. I think we saw some improvement as the season went on for Wyoming in 2024, but their record was not great. But I do expect to see improvement for Wyoming. Caden Anderson, their quarterback, I think he's someone that can help and elevate their passing game. Like you said, you got Chris Durr Jr., John Michael Gillenborg, right? He returns. I think we've heard for 2 years now, like that they need to get the ball in his hands as often as possible. He was banged up a little to start the year in 2024, and so is this the year where John Michael Gillenborg kind of busts out and keeps that Wyoming tight end tradition alive, and maybe is playing on Sundays. Defensively, I think the Wyoming offensive line, I think they're one of the better offensive lines in all the G5. Matter of fact, we did an interview with those guys. If you didn't get to check it out, they do their own podcast. It's called Fat, Fatter, and Fattest. I listen to it weekly. It's very entertaining. It's just fun. Like it's the fun side of college football. But yeah, I think they're going to be able to impose their will and run the ball with whether it's Teron Kelman or Sam Scott. That's probably the biggest thing I'm looking for in terms of Wyoming is like, who is there a bell cow guy, or is it Sam Scott and Teron Kelman kind of splitting things up 50-50? On the Akron side, I guess I'm kind of like curious to see, like, is there a wide receiver that steps up in the absence of Adrian Norton? Adrian Norton was their wide receiver one, an all conference level player a year ago. He's now off to Marshall. And so I'm excited. I'm like curious who's that going to be. Is it going to be an Alex Adams, right? Who we saw flashes of 2 years ago, wasn't really healthy last year. Is he healthy? Is he ready to be that wide receiver one? Or is it like an Israel Polk, right? Who comes over, I think, from Pitt. Like, so that's kind of, what I'm looking for from Akron is like, who's that wide receiver one there for the Zips in week one. But at the end of the day, I think Wyoming's too much for him. On the defensive side, I'm really excited to see freshman linebacker Gary Rutherford for Wyoming. Like, by all accounts, like he's the next big thing at linebacker for the Cowboys.
All right, let's move over to our Friday games. We got App State at Charlotte, but it's that Duke Mayo. Who's getting the Duke Mayo bath? This is, I think, at Carolina Panthers Stadium.
Yep.
So big game here. I think what I'm just looking forward to is, you got new head coach, you got new looking teams. What does App State look like? When we did the Worker Bee series, talked about kind of, quick passing, get the ball in space. But App State's just known to be like pound the ball, run the ball. So I'm kind of just curious to see how that dynamic works. And then Charlotte, you've got the head coach, Tim Albin, coming over from Ohio over to Charlotte. I'm assuming they're going to play solid defense. I'm kind of curious as to what that offense looks like. I'm one to believe that the Ohio offensive success is because of their OC that was there at Ohio. So I'm just kind of curious on what Charlotte looks like. I'll probably watch a little bit of this game here and there, being Friday night. But I think I've probably got more questions that I want answered from Appalachian State than necessarily Charlotte, because I just don't think I'm very high on Charlotte. And I'm like, App State intrigues me, and I just kind of want to see what they have to offer.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the thing, like, when I look at Charlotte, the thing that, like, when we did our Worker Bee series with Cam Williams, the thing that kind of like shocked me the most is like, they don't have a lot of depth in the trenches, right? Like, I mean, the offensive line, defensive line, I think, are already questionable. I think they have some starters that are good, but like the depth is like non-existent. And so that really, really worries me for Charlotte. I think Tim Albin's a good hire. I think he'll get things turned around at Charlotte, but I don't know that you're going to see that in 2025 in terms of a win total. I am excited to see Connor Harrell, right, and kind of see what he looks like at quarterback. But yeah, I'm excited to see, like, what I want to know is, like, is App State, like, are they back? Are they like the App State team that everyone knows and loves? And it's a tough place to win, regardless, of the season they're having. But are they a legit contender in the Sun Belt, or are they still like a year away or so? So that's probably the biggest question for me in that App State game. What was the spread?
50.5. App State favored by 6.5.
Yeah, I would say give me App State in the points. I feel like they can beat Charlotte by a touchdown or more.
All right, now we've got it's early in the season, but we saw both these teams week 1 or week 0. I don't know if this is a pillow fight right now of defenses. We got UNLV at Sam Houston. Sam Houston not actually playing at home. Their stadium renovations are being done. So, but that's at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. UNLV is favored by 9.5. Over under set at 61.5. I feel like I want to take the over, because I feel like these defenses won't be able to stop each other. But I just feel more comfortable that UNLV is going to be able to move the ball a lot better than Sam Houston will be able to move the ball. But I feel like there's kind of a wide range of outcomes for this game. This game will be interesting to watch. So not probably a game like all. I mean, I don't know what all is going on Friday, but I'll be more curious in the game that we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. Like I'd rather watch the game we're going to talk about in a minute. But
so let's just talk about it.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say like UNLV, Sam Houston. I don't have big expectations for either of them this year. It could be a good game, right? Because like neither one of them defensively look good. Yeah, I don't know. Like probably the only thing I'm really looking for is UNLV still rotating the two quarterbacks, or do they give Calandria the run and then the same at running back? Do they finally say, hey, you know what, Jaden Thomas is the best player on this team. We need to give him the ball as much as possible. That's probably the thing I'm most interested in that game.
All right. And then we've got Central Michigan at San Jose State, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. If you think about going to sleep early, don't. This game, I think, is going to be fun to watch. San Jose State, favorite to win by 12.5, over-under set at 50.5. I would take the over of the points. The thing here to watch is, what is Central Michigan? You've got the Army offensive line coach, comes in to be the head coach. He gets a hat. It says, run the damn ball. He puts out tweets. He said, if you want to be a fullback, if you want, tweet at me, give me your film, come here. Then they bring in two OCs, one from Eastern Washington?
It's Eastern Washington, yeah.
Eastern Washington. They throw the ball around a whole bunch. You've got another co-OC that comes from NAIA, Grandview College in Des Moines, Iowa, and they could kind of do whatever, pass the ball, run the ball. Definitely like to favor to pass the ball, but then they had some injuries at wide receivers, so then they decided to run the ball, and they run for like over 400 yards in the championship game for the NAIA. And then you got San Jose State. You got the Triple Crown winner, Nick Nash. He's off to Atlanta. But then you've got Walker Eggett coming in. You've got Danny Scudero. You've got Leland Smith. I think this offense is going to pass the whole bunch. I honestly think Central Michigan is going to pass more than people think. And I like the over, but it's going to be a fun game to watch. And I guess I'm curious to see what the Central Michigan offense looks like, and I'm curious to see what the San Jose State passing offense looks like. But it should be exciting.
Yeah, this is probably the game I'm looking forward to the most, other than the Old Dominion game.
Really, more than Boise State and South Florida?
Yeah,
wow.
I think so. And I think it's different, right? Like, I mean, I think the Boise State UCF game can be a really, really good game. I guess I'm just for all the reasons you said, I'm really interested in seeing or trying to figure out what we should expect from the Central Michigan offense here in 2025. It's a melting pot of different coaches and different philosophies, and so I'm just kind of interested to see what that looks like. And then, the spread and shred, Craig Stutzman, the OC there at San Jose State. I'm kind of excited to see like what that offense looks like in terms of like is Danny Scudero the man in the slot that we expect he'll be? I definitely think Leland Smith kind of he's the man on the outside. I think they both can have really, really big seasons. Does Matthew Coleman and do him and Scudero, how much do they rotate, if any? We are both big on San Jose State. They have part of that is they have a pretty easy schedule, right? They don't play UNLV, they don't play Boise State in the regular season anyway. And so we both picked San Jose State to be in the Mountain West Championship. I think we both picked them to win. I'm just, does Walker Eggett take that next step? Because man, he had some really woof games a year ago. I mean, I remember us talking on the show, like, hey, like, what did Emmett Brown do to be benched and get another shot there at quarterback and Walker Eggett? Because I mean, Eggett, I think it was the game against UNLV, man. Like, it was windy. Don't get me wrong, but like he was god awful. Walker Eggett he was really, really bad. I mean, Hajj Malik Williams in the same conditions looked a lot better than Walker did. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I'm just more intrigued or excited to learn things, I guess, in that Central Michigan San Jose State game. That's probably why I'm the most excited for it.
All right. Saturday, G5 versus P4 games. Justice, I'm going to let you kind of set the tone, set the pace for this because we've got a whole bunch of G5 versus P4 games. So I'm going to let you set the pace. You're the pace car. We're going to go as fast or as slow as you want. We've got Mississippi State at Southern Miss in a rare kind of home and home game for a G5 P4 team coming in at 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. We've got Mississippi State favored by 13.5, over under set at 61.5.
Yeah, I mean, Southern Miss, right? Like, what do they look like? Do they look like the Marshall 2024 team? Or do they look like the old Southern Miss team of 2024? I mean, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I think Southern Miss will be much improved. We saw Mississippi State get absolutely shellacked by Toledo a year ago. Mississippi State is not a good team. I think they might be even worse in 2025 than they were in 2024. The game is at home for Southern Miss. I would not be shocked if Southern Miss wins the game. I also wouldn't be shocked if they lose the game. Again, I'm just really kind of excited to see like that Southern Miss offense and what it looks like. I think a lot of people are questioning like whose offense is it really going to be. I think we've been on the side. It's 100% Blake Anderson's offense, and Blake Anderson offenses are exciting. So I'm just kind of excited to see what that offense looks like in week one. And I think Southern Miss is a dark horse to potentially win the Sun Belt West. And so, what they show here in week one will go a long way to showing how they're gonna, play here and what to expect from them in 2025.
All right, we got Florida Atlantic at Maryland, 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Maryland favored by 14.5, over under set at 60.5. I think what I'm curious to see is Easton Messer and what this passing offense looks like. That's, I think, my main thing that I'm curious about. And then I guess seeing what this defense looks like, because obviously if the defense is looking porous, then it's going to mean a lot more shootouts for Florida Atlantic. Maryland should be starting Malik Washington, a true freshman. So it'll be kind of interesting to just see how that dynamic works at the very beginning. Obviously, being a true freshman, I don't think, if you've got a P4, G5 team, it really matters. A freshman's a freshman, and they're not going to see things. So this game might be a little bit closer than you might think. But like I said, 60.5, I might take the under of points. Maryland is favored by 14.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. I'm excited to see Caden Beltkamp and Easton Messer. Are we going to get the 2025 version of Bailey Zappi and Jared Stearns? I think a lot of people think that might be possible, right? With Kitley coming back to the G5 after spending some time there at Texas Tech as their offensive coordinator, and to your point, like the defense is not necessarily expected to be really good, and so that means they can mean there a lot of passing yards for the Owls, a lot of yards for Easton Messer. But the other thing I'm looking for, like, who's that wide receiver too? Is it Sean Wilson? Is it Quincy Brown? Is it someone else? Who else besides Easton Messer can step up for that Florida Atlantic offense?
Ball State at Purdue, 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Purdue favored by 17.5, over under set at 50.5. I have a hard time believing that it gets over 50.5 points. But hey, who knows? I probably wouldn't want to bet this game.
Yeah,
but
this is probably the game I would be least excited to watch. Two teams that I don't necessarily have a whole lot of expectations for in 2025. So, yeah.
All right, let's move over to Northwestern at Tulane, 12 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Again, one of those rare home and home games for a G5 P4 team. We've got Tulane favored by 6. Total over-under set at 46.5. Retzlaff probably going to be the quarterback. I think Tulane's got a chance to win this. They're obviously favored by 6. Northwestern coming down there probably helps a little bit, but this one will definitely be one on the radar. I'm just kind of curious as to what Tulane looks like, because before Retzlaff, I think other national media people were big on Tulane. They're going to be the G5 representative. Talk a little bit here there. I was very much. I didn't even think Tulane would win their conference. Obviously, getting Retzlaff, big improvement, but we'll see who can step up in the wide receiver room. What does that running back rotation look like with Mekhi Hughes off to Oregon? I think those are my kind of concerns, or what I'm curious about. Obviously, I don't expect the passing game to look great because Retzlaff got there late. I expect him to start. So I'm going to expect a heavy dose of running the ball, and just kind of who does he tend to pass the ball to?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is like a prime candidate number one for another G5 win over P4. Obviously, even the odds makers think that, right, with Tulane being the favorite. The interesting thing with the line to me is that before Jake Retzlaff, the line was higher. I think it was like 7 or 7.5. And then after Jake Retzlaff, it goes down. That makes absolutely zero sense to me in terms of that, because, like, in my opinion, they got a lot better with Jake Retzlaff. To your point, like, before him, like, I don't think they win the conference. With him, they were my pick to represent the G5 in the college football playoff. And the reason why I picked them is I think they win the American, and they have a schedule where they can get 2 P4 wins. They play Northwestern at home. They play Duke at home. And so I think, that if they can win both those P4 games and win the American, it's going to be a tough resume for other teams to beat. But yeah, I think Tulane has one of the best, if not the best, defense in all of the G5. Northwestern, can Preston Stone look like he did in 2023? The 2024, he got injured. I think that changed him. At least in 2024, he did. He did not look like the same guy at quarterback. Can he get things turned around at Northwestern here in 2025? I don't know, but yeah, like I think this is a statement game for Tulane. I realize it's week 1, it's early, but it's a prime opportunity for them to say, hey, we should be the G5 representative in the college football playoffs.
Absolutely. All right. Next game, 12:45 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Toledo at Kentucky. Kentucky favored by 7.5. Over under set at 48.5. Another upset alert. I think Toledo has a chance to knock off Kentucky at Kentucky. Toledo, definitely a tough G5 opponent. Trying to think from a Toledo standpoint. I don't really have a lot of questions. I kind of feel like I know what they are. I feel like they're going to run the ball. How does the dynamic duo look there at wide receiver with Vanderos and Rudolph? But I guess how does why am I blanking on quarterback's name?
Tucker Gleason. Like how
does he look? Yeah, and how does he look against the Kentucky and SEC defense? I think that's probably the thing I'm going to have my eye out for.
Absolutely. I mean, he was very up and down, very inconsistent a year ago. I think Toledo is another team that could potentially be the G5 rep in the college football playoff. But for that to happen, they need consistent and good quarterback play from Tucker Gleason. A year ago this time, I mentioned it the very first game we talked about in this segment, Mississippi State. I mean, Toledo went down to Mississippi State and beat the absolute crap out of Mississippi State. Like, it wasn't a close game. It wasn't like they won by a field goal. They outplayed Mississippi State. I think they have the potential to do that same thing to Kentucky. An interesting side story. Toledo running back Chip Tranum was at Kentucky a year ago. So maybe this is a little bit of a revenge get back game for him. I think, both Luke and I expect Chip Trayanum to have a really, really big season for Toledo. He was our MAC preseason offensive player of the year. And so, again, to Luke's point, another great opportunity for an upset and for a G5 win over a P4 with the Rockets beating the Wildcats.
All right. Next, we've got, I guess we can probably skim over this one. Old Dominion at Indiana, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You're not too concerned about this one, right, Justice? You could care less? No. You get Old Dominion at Indiana, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Give it the respect it deserves. Total over-under set at 54.5. We've got Indiana favored by 24. I feel like that's a big number. I would take Old Dominion.
That's a really big number. That's a really big number in my opinion. Before you get to going, what I'm excited to see is I want to see, you've talked a lot about this wide receiver room and it being deep. I'm kind of just curious to see who Colton Joseph, who he finds rhythm with and repertoire with. Obviously, he's going to run the ball. I'm curious on how many times he can break containment. I don't know what his player prop like over under would be, but I'd probably go over because he might be running a little bit. But what I'm curious to see is how that wide receiver room looks, and I think we've talked about it before. This linebacking room might be one of the best, not only of the G5, but all of college football. I think pretty confidently, without knowing many of the P5 defenses very well, that ODU probably has a top 5 or 6 linebacking core in all of college football. So I think it's going to be tough for Indiana to run the ball and get things going on the ground, and I think they're going to deliver some punishment in the middle if some guys do crossers and whatnot. So I'll be excited for this one, but give me the points for ODU. Yeah, I think I on the Monarchist podcast, which is the official ODU podcast, I joined them this week to preview this game, and I think I predicted a 3-point win. I think a 31-28 win by Old Dominion. But at the end of the day, like Indiana, in my opinion, they're not 22 points. I think then it was 22. You said I think the spread today is 24. I don't feel Indiana is 24 points better than Old Dominion. That's a lot of points. I don't think Indiana, if they do win, I don't think they win by 24. And it wouldn't. I think Old Dominion has a shot. I've said it so many times. I don't want to regurgitate it all again. But Old Dominion, this is the most talented team under the Ricky Ronnie era, and so I expect big things out of Old Dominion this year. To your point, I'm excited to see who does step up in the wide receiver room. I think there's talent there. I'm excited to see the progression that Colton Joseph has made, especially in the passing game. And then I look at Indiana. When I look at them, probably the biggest question mark I have about them is the defensive line. They return Mikel Camara, but then they lose a lot of other guys. And so that leads me to believe maybe Old Dominion can have some success running the ball. Old Dominion had a lot of success a year ago running the ball. I think they were fourth in I think the G5 in terms of rushing per game, something like that. And so I think that I think they can have some success here in this game. And obviously, as an Old Dominion fan, this is the game I'm looking forward to the most. And hope Old Dominion can pull off the upset, and maybe, just maybe, they can be the G5 rep in the college football playoffs if they can beat Indiana, beat Virginia Tech, and win the Sun Belt.
All right, now let's take a look at Nevada at Penn State, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Penn State favored by 44 points. Over under set at 56.5. 44 is a lot of points. Not.
It's a lot of
I
points.
don't think there's going to be. It's a lot of points. When we're talking about like things that we're trying to find out, I will be curious as to how Nevada's quarterback play looks. But honestly, Penn State is going to be pretty good. I feel like it's just going to be Nevada needs to get out healthy, and I don't really know if there's anything I'm going to take away from this game. Obviously, we're pretty high on Herschel Turner. I assume he'll get a lot of touches at the beginning, but I think they'll start a rotation at some point, and keep people fresh, get some people some playing time in a hostile environment. But I don't know if there's a lot to take away from this game.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully, just don't get Herschel Turner hurt. Penn State's a favorite, one of the favorites to be in the college football playoffs, and there's a reason for that. And so I don't know. Hopefully, Nevada's smart and just doesn't kind of like what Fresno State did with Bryson Donaldson, against Kansas. Hey, we know what he is. We don't need to risk him getting hurt in a game that we're not going to win, and it doesn't mean a whole lot. And hopefully, Nevada will kind of take that same path. All right, moving over to some more G5 versus P4 games. Looking at the Marshall Thundering Herd taking on Georgia from the SEC. The spread is Georgia minus 39.5. Over under at 55.5. Again, a large number, but Marshall. I don't know this, but I feel like Marshall had the most turnover of any roster in all of college football, at least
Probably,
the FBS. In the FBS, anyway. They lost. They lost guys in the NFL. When they didn't lose the NFL, they lost in the transfer portal. Brand new coaching staff. I think Marshall's probably just wants to come away from this game healthy, right? Georgia, the powerhouse that they are. I think. I'm not a big Gunnar Stockton fan, so it'll be interesting to kind of see what he looks like for Georgia. But it's going to be an ugly game, I think.
I'll be kind of curious to see the split. Running back, you got Barbie. You got he was NC State, then went to UNLV. Then
Michael Allen.
Michael Allen.
You got Tony Mathis, the West Virginia transfer.
I'll be curious to see how that running back split goes. But again, it'll be going up against Georgia guys, so I don't anticipate to see a lot. Pretty similar to Nevada versus Penn State.
Yes, it's going to be an ugly one, I think. All right, next up we got Coastal Carolina at Virginia. That's 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Virginia is favored by 12. Over under a 57.5. Coastal Carolina is such a mystery. Their spring practices were closed. There's been no media reports out of fall practice. Whose offense is this going to be? Is it going to be a Tim Beck offense? Is it going to be and I forget their OC's name, but he is a Mike Leach disciple. So is it going to be a run and shoot offense? We don't know. Is it going to be MJ Morris, who's probably more of a Tim Beck style quarterback, or maybe Tad Hudson, who would be more of a potential run and shoot, more of a pocket passer. We know that Emmett Brown's not going to be the quarterback. He suffered a season-ending injury. So I don't know. I'm not excited for this game. Virginia is just, I don't know. They got Chandler Morris, but I don't think either one of these teams are very good in 2025. I think both of these coaches might not be here in 2026. Probably the thing I'm most excited to see, if I have to pick one thing, is what to expect from the Coastal Carolina offense here in 2025.
Yes, that's what I'm watching is, the offense. And the name you're looking for is Drew Hollingshead. So
he came over from, most recently, I believe he was at Western Kentucky as their OC. He was a wide receiver coach at Mississippi State under Mike Leach. Rest in peace to Mike Leach. But yeah. All right. This one should be a good one, a good barn burner in Texas. You got the UTSA Roadrunners against Texas A&M. That's 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Texas A&M is favored by 24.5 with an over-under of 56.5.
I feel like that's a large number.
I expect Texas A&M to win. Again, that's a huge number. I don't know that they'll beat UTSA by 24.5 points. UTSA offense, I think, is electric. The defense is going to be a problem for UTSA. Texas A&M, I think, they're going to run the ball, control the ball. I don't know. I don't know that there's a whole lot to learn from in this game. I mean, other than is the UTSA defense better than we expect? Right? I don't necessarily think they're going to be worse than we expect, because we don't think they're going to be great to begin with. But can they be better than we expect? Because UTSA has an offense that is capable of winning the American in 2025.
Let's move on over to the next game.
Next up, we got New Mexico at Michigan. That's 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. The spread in this one is Michigan favored by 35 with an over-under of 49.5.
I feel like I got to take New Mexico in the point. I mean, that's a large number, and if you're going to have a freshman quarterback starting, I just feel like that's a large number. I mean, I don't think New Mexico is going to win. I think they're going to get blown out, but that's a pretty large number.
That's a big number for a freshman quarterback. I will say that. I don't think I just would avoid it personally, but I don't think there's a lot to take away from this game. I guess the biggest thing is Jack Lane. Does he? He had that. I don't know if it was a shoulder or an elbow injury that kept him out most of the spring. And so
I think it was an elbow injury.
What does he look like, right? Does he, he follows Coach Eck over from Idaho, and so that's probably the thing I'm most interested in New Mexico is what does Jack Lane look like? Expect big things out of Coach Eck's son, Jackson Eck, the linebacker. I think he's going to be a big piece for this New Mexico defense. A year ago, this New Mexico defense was one of the worst defenses in all of college football. And so I think we'll see some improvement. I don't know if you're necessarily going to see that improvement week 1 against Michigan. All right. Next up, newcomer to the FBS and to Conference USA, Missouri State travels out to LA to take on the Trojans of USC, a 7:30 p.m. Eastern game on Saturday. USC is favored by 35, over under of 59.5. I don't expect this to be a good game. I think Missouri State will be okay once they get to conference play in Conference USA. I like Jacob Clark. I'd be interested to kind of see who steps up for that wide receiver room. You got Shamari Lawrence there, friend of the show. I expect him to carry a heavy load there for Missouri State. And then at tight end, they lost Lance Mason after the spring. They're due everything, all conference potential tight end off to, I believe, Wisconsin. Gary Clinton was supposed to be the guy, and I'm pretty sure he got hurt in fall camp. But I don't think it matters for this game. But yeah, Missouri State's welcome to FBS football, Missouri State. Do you have any thoughts, Luke?
No, I don't.
All right. Next up, we got Georgia State at Ole Miss. That's a 7:45 p.m. Eastern on Saturday.
I got stuff for this one. Georgia State takes down Vandy last year. This might be an upset alert. Give me the spread. Give me the over/under. I interrupted you.
You're good. Ole Miss is favored by 36 with an over/under of 60.5. That's a big spread. We don't know who's starting yet for Georgia State at quarterback, right? I think a lot probably depends on the offensive line. We saw that a year ago. Christian Veer, he's a prototypical pocket passer. If you give him time, he looks good. Unfortunately, that was an issue for Georgia State in 2024, and so we saw him, I believe, rotate out. Was it Pyron, the other quarterback that maybe came in? I'm trying to remember, but anyway, he was a more mobile option, I guess is really the point I'm trying to get to. And so Georgia State has Cameron Brown, PJ Hatter, both very much mobile options at quarterback. I mean, I think the expectation is that it's going to be Cameron Brown, but I guess we'll see. What does Georgia State look like under year 2 under Del McGee? Can they show some improvement? That's probably the big question. I feel like they're still, I don't know, a year or so away. But can they show some improvement under Del McGee? I mean, Ole Miss is breaking a new quarterback, Austin Simmons.
I think
so
that's the thing I'm interested to see is Georgia State. Their running back room is deep. I think they've got a lot of guys that they can, honestly, go a drive with this guy, drive with that guy, quarter with this guy, whatever they want to do. I feel like they can do it and they can control the game. And Ole Miss just moves so fast that I think what happens, where the stars align for Georgia State is that they're going so fast. Austin Simmons is there. Maybe he struggles a little bit, and Georgia State is able to control the clock and pick up first downs and win the field position battle and punch in a couple touchdowns. I think that's the recipe. They, like I said, they were able to beat Vandy last year. I think I would take Georgia State in the points. I don't feel great about it, but I see a scenario that, what did you say they were? 36 points or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of odd to say that a team that's favored to lose by that much could actually win the game, but I think there's something in there.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like I said, interesting to see how Georgia State looks year 2 under Del McGee. Next up, Mike Alejado. We get to see Hawaii at Arizona. That is 10:30 p.m. Eastern Saturday. Arizona is favored by 17.5, over under of 52.5. I don't
Probably
know.
Just getting hammered because of the Alejado injury.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested. If it was a healthy Alejado, I'd be interested to see maybe they could, I would be interested in maybe putting some money on Hawaii if the spread was 17.5. I don't think Arizona is very good, but I think for Hawaii to have any kind of shot, they would need a 100% healthy Alejado. And to your point, Luke, as you mentioned earlier, they need Alejado in Mountain West. And in the big scheme of things, this game probably doesn't mean a whole lot. So it's not really worth risking him, getting injured where he's going to miss more games.
I mean, you saw it right there. He was hobbled. You can't take the game. You can't just put a guy out there and don't do this, don't do that. He tried to not run, but then there's that.
Well, he made that one run.
And he ran, and it's I can't imagine that did anything good. So it's starting out with that at the very beginning is going to be tough. Hey, don't run. I think you almost have to protect the kid from himself and not play him against Arizona.
Yeah. I would agree. If there's any question, you hold him out. And, like you said, you don't want to get him injured in a game that for the most part doesn't mean a whole lot in the big scheme of things for Hawaii. And then he gets injured, he misses 4 or 5 games, and you feel like your chances in the Mountain West are kind of shot. All right, final game of the night on Saturday for the G5 versus P4. You got the Colorado State Rams traveling up to Washington to play the Huskies. This is an 11 p.m. Eastern start on Saturday. Washington is favored by 22.5 with an over-under of 52.5. I don't know, like probably an avoid.
The only thing I'm interested to see, Colorado State really hasn't had a wide receiver out of camp that really has jumped out. How do they utilize Rocky Pierce? How do they utilize Jackson? Why am I
Warren.
blanking on his last name? Warren. I think how do those tight ends get utilized in this offense? I think Colorado State's defense can be pretty good this year. So I'll be kind of curious to see how the linebacker play and the D line plays in this one. And then what do they do with running the ball? If they can't find success passing the ball, if they're not utilizing the tight ends, how do they utilize this running backs? You got Justin Marshall, who's I don't want to say he's like a slender running back, but he's not like a Jalen Dupree or anything like that when it comes to that body type. So, hey, do they use them situationally, or is it Justin Marshall has 1,000 yards in his future coming? I think that's what I'm interested for Colorado State, and I think playing against Washington, I think we're going to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, what's their identity, right? What's the Colorado State offensive identity? I think, like everyone expects that Jay Norvell is going to be an air raid and throw it around, but like as he showed last year, that's not, he'll, where they really became a more of a ground and pound type team behind Avery Morrow and Justin Marshall. And I can see it going either way this year, right? Like I would lean towards the ground and pound just because of the talent of Marshall and Jalen Dupree. And then wide receiver is a big question mark. And like to your point, really excited to kind of see how those tight ends will get utilized. He's had some great tight end seasons there at Colorado State and previously at Nevada. And so, can Rocky Beers is Rocky Beers going to be celebrating a lot this season in the New Belgium end zone? That question might be answered this coming week. All right, we're at the home stretch. We got 5 more games left. These are all G5 versus G5 Saturday games. First up, we got Temple versus UMass. This feels like a rivalry game, if you will, right? Two teams from the Northeast. Temple at UMass, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Temple is favored by 2.5 with an over-under of 47.5. I think I take Temple and the points. 2 new coaching staffs, but UMass and the MAC. I think UMass has improved this year, but at the end of the day, I think under Casey Keeler he's a phenomenal coach, both at the FCS and the FBS level. His teams are always well coached. His teams always run the ball well and play good defense. I don't expect that to be any different here in 2025. And so, yeah, give me Temple. I'm excited to see how what that running back rotation looks like with Jay Ducker and Therese Worthy there for the Temple Owls. And I'm also excited to see Rocco Griffin for UMass, right? The OC there at UMass was there at Boston College back in the A.J. Dillon days. And so I'm excited to see, is Rocco Griffin going to get the A.J. Dillon treatment and kind of, be the workhorse back for the Minutemen. So I think this is a good old school game, right? Good old school smash mouth type game on Saturday at that 3:30 there in Amherst.
These next 4 games, I'm really excited about. There's so much to learn about a lot of these teams here. So I'll let you take it.
All right. Next up is UTEP at Utah State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Saturday. Utah State is favored by 6 points with an over-under of 60.5. A lot of interesting things in this game, right? You got Bronco Mendenhall, year 1 at Utah State, Scotty Walden, year 2 at UTEP. You got Malachi Nelson, Bryson Barnes. You Yeah, like
Brock Lane coming back from his ACL. What
yeah.
is Braden Pagan? A lot of hype. Oh, Boyd. Why am I
Brady
blanking on
Boyd, the other receiver in the
Brady Boyd
slot for
coming from
Utah
Texas
State.
Tech? What is that? How does everything get divvied out there? Like you said, UTEP, they're exciting and running the ball. Reason to see what they have. I don't feel like they have a whole bunch of depth. So if they get injuries or banged up, the wheels could come off pretty quickly. But I think this is a good game to get everything started off, and I'm definitely excited to see what Utah State passing offense looks like.
I mean, this game, I think, Brett's asking, does it have shootout potential? Certainly does. If UTEP, I think, can take that next step on offense, like this is a game where, like, I think we can see is can UTEP be a potential, dark horse contender in Conference USA? And it starts this week against Utah State in terms of what do they look like? Do we see that expected improvement under Scotty Walden here in year 2? Bronco Mendenhall, all the man does is win, man. Like I realize why it didn't happen, but I gotta tell you, the job he did at New Mexico in 2024 was 100% worthy of being a coach of the year. And like, if you don't know, a lot about football, you didn't watch many of their games, you'll be like, oh, they only won 5 games. Why should he be coach of the year? Number one, New Mexico is a hard place to coach and a hard place to win. And that team, like, from just a pure talent standpoint, they had some talented individuals, 100%. But like from an overall talent standpoint, Bronco Mendenhall got a lot out of that talent, and like I thought he did a phenomenal job there at New Mexico, and I think he's going to do a great job here at Utah State. And so yeah, this to me is one of the more exciting G5 matchups this week, and we should learn a lot about both teams. All right, next up, the Rice Owls at the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, 8 p.m. Eastern Saturday. The Raging Cajuns are favored by 11.5, an over-under of 47.5. We get to see Walker Howard and Shelton Sampson and our Sunbelt preseason Defensive Player of the Year, Cam Whitfield, off the edge. And then Rice. Like, Rice is a new triple option team in the American. I'm really interested to see this Rice offense, right? Chase Jenkins at quarterback, Quentin Jackson at running back. Like, I'm just really, I don't know, like, I'm intrigued by Rice, and I'm excited to kind of see how that offense, that new look triple option offense looks like in year 1 under Scott Abell. Well, what are your thoughts on this game, Luke?
We got Patty C in the chat. Says, I'm interested in seeing the Rice Owls offense for sure. Couldn't agree more. I'm excited to see what it looks like. Davidson, I could be wrong, but I feel like last year at Davidson, they had a game where they ran for over 400 or 500 yards and still lost. So that was, that's pretty amazing that you can at least run that, run that much. So I'm just curious to see what that looks like. Louisiana, like you said, what does that offensive identity look like? But it's going to be hard to defend against the triple option right out of the gate. That over under set at 47.5. Heck, it could be lower. I don't know. I'm going to stay clear of it. Don't feel great about it, but I think Rice could pull this one out because of being unique, just like all the service academies. And if they're able to, put together everything that they learned last spring and over the summer, I just want to see what the Rice Owls look like.
I would say, like, normally I think I would tend to agree with you, like, because the triple option offenses are so unique and different. I think what I would say, like, what worries me is, like, it's year 1 under this system for the Rice Owls. Yep. And so that like, it's, how effective are they going to be? How good are they going to be in year 1 of this offense? I think Louisiana wins the game, and I think if I had to pick something, I think I'd pick the under on the spread probably. But yeah.
So I guess what we're looking at tackles. We're looking at Rice Owl tackles. That's what we're looking at.
Absolutely. All right. Next up, we got Eastern Michigan at Texas State, 8 p.m. Eastern Saturday. Texas State, 14-point favorite, over under 58.5. Give me Texas State the points, man. Like, Brad Jackson's the quarterback. I'm interested to see like what the passing game looks like with Brad Jackson at the helm. A year ago, when we saw Brad Jackson, we saw a lot of Brad Jackson running the ball. I'm interested to see like what the passing game looks like under Brad Jackson. Who steps up there, receiver? Is it Chris Don Jr.? Is it Bo Sparks? Is it someone else? Can Texas State be a contender in the Sun Belt in their final year in the Sun Belt? I don't have high expectations for Eastern Michigan. So give me Texas State in the points. What do you think there, Luke?
I'm really curious. I'm more curious about Texas State than I am Eastern Michigan. Texas State, I want to see what the passing game looks like. I want to see what Lincoln Pear looks like. I want to see how that running game gets utilized. You said Jackson's, ran the ball a whole bunch. Do they continue? Is he almost like a 1B in the running situation? I want to know what that looks like. Eastern Michigan, I am kind of curious. Noah Kim, right? He's quarterback over there. Former Michigan State. Then I think he went to Coastal. Now he's over there. So, he's got, he's got P4 abilities, as a freshman going there. So I'll be kind of curious to see how that offense goes and how he looks, I guess. But I'm mostly curious about Texas State. And then, of course, you got Noah Kaniga. Maybe he gets in there, We got, maybe some that you got to tune in for that. Maybe get somebody to say that. Shout out to Eastern Michigan fans there. But
all right, well, it's been a long show. We're finally here, the last game. It'll be an interesting game. I think it's Georgia Southern at Fresno State, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Saturday. Georgia Southern's only favored by 1.5, over under of 51.5. That spread really, really surprises me, right?
Absolutely.
Because we just saw Fresno State. Again, it was the P4, but they didn't look great in the trenches. Fortunately, I guess for them is Georgia Southern is not Kansas in the trenches. So, maybe we'll get to see more what to expect out of Fresno State in this game, in terms of what we might look forward to see from Bryson Donaldson here in 2025. Again, I don't think I think we saw flashes of that in the Kansas game, but I also think they realized, hey, if we're going to have success this year, it's going to rely on Bryson Donaldson, and we don't need to get him injured. And so I am this is the kind of game where I think maybe we get a truer read on what to expect from Fresno State in terms of Mountain West Conference play. Georgia Southern, I'm interested in this defense, I think, right? The offense under JC French, I think, will be fine. You got OJ Arnold at running back. Receiver, who's the wide receiver one? Is it Camden Brown, the transfer from Auburn? Is it Josh Dallas, the returner? I think Georgia Southern's going to be fine on offense. Again, JC French kind of reminds me of Tucker Gleason in terms of, hey, he wasn't always consistent a year ago. I think if Georgia Southern wants to win the Sun Belt East and make it to the Sun Belt championship game, JC French and his consistency is the key, but also their defense. This defense really worries me. It was not a great defense a year ago. They lost their best player and linebacker, Marquise Watson-Trent, also a friend of the show. He's off to Nebraska. And so, man, this could be a good game. We know Fresno State wants to run the ball. I think Georgia Southern can have some trouble with their defense stopping the run. This is a game I'm looking forward to just from a pure, what to expect, maybe get a more realistic view of what to expect from Fresno State here in 2025. What do you think?
What I'm looking forward to is the Georgia Southern defense. Last time we saw them in week 1, Boise State and Ashton Genty had a field day on the ground. So does that mean a big Bryson Donaldson game, like you said? Or has this defense – there's a lot of guys coming back. I'm expecting Georgia Southern defense to be good. I think Georgia Southern has a legit chance to win the Sun Belt. And I think we're going to figure out – kind of get a tone of this team here. Like you said, I think offense they'll be fine, but I'm curious to see what Georgia Southern's defense looks like. If they are to win the Sun Belt, they are going to have to just dominate Fresno State in this game. Like I think they have a legitimate chance to win, and they need to show it against Fresno State, because I think Fresno State is a team is kind of like you play up or down to your competition, and like I think that they are better than Fresno State, and they need to, like, Georgia Southern being favored by only 1.5 is wild to me. So I think that, if they crush it, then I think Georgia Southern is definitely a team to watch in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that spread is just wild, because like Georgia, a lot of like national media expects Georgia Southern to be a contender and possibly win the Sun Belt, and then we just saw Fresno State a week ago, and so. I mean, I think Vegas got it right in terms of spread because I'm not high on Georgia Southern, but I know like a lot of folks are, and so from that standpoint, it does shock me. But nonetheless, should be a good game to kind of close out the weekend, and that's going to close out things for us for this week. If you're still with us,
marathon,
appreciate it, man. It was 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 30 seconds we've been going. We appreciate everyone, appreciate the support, appreciate the comments, all that kind of stuff. Brett, I don't know of any coaching issues with Fresno State. I mean, other than, he's a new coach. It's Coach Matt Entz, formerly, I believe he was North Dakota State, I think, prior to going to USC. I think he's a good coach. I think he'll get things turned around. I'm not aware of any coaching issues for Fresno State. But yeah, I mean, we did it, Luke. I think we talked about this being a long one before we started, just because there's so many games. So
yeah,
thanks.
I can't wait till we get into conference play.
Yes, absolutely. All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. On X, give us a like, a follow, a retweet. If you're listening on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star rating and reviews. We're so grateful for the immense amount of support that we received over the last, I guess it's 2 years now. We're starting year 3 here, and we sincerely thank each and every one of you. Be sure to join us next week as we'll discuss what happened in week 1 and look forward to what to expect in week 2. And as always, bring you up to date on all the latest news and happenings in the world of G5 college football. But until then, we are the G5 Hive.